Thanks for coming out tonight. I appreciate it.
As someone who didn't really like Remake, I gotta say, Rebirth was definitely a breath of fresh air. I love the improvements to battles. The synergy attacks kick ass and bosses feel more like actual fights compared to Remake, where it just felt like I was trying to stagger them just so a cutscene could play and reset the stagger meter. I liked the combat in Remake, but I felt as if the game never let me fully utilize its mechanics outside of a few boss battles and the combat simulator. Queen's Blood is up there as one of the best minigames in an RPG for me. This could have easily been a disaster a la Final Fantasy VIII, but it really comes through. Rebirth's world is also just way better than Remake's Midgar. That being said, aside from the few cache locations that can be found in every area, it did feel like the open world aspect was muddied a little by the fact that I was just going from intel location to intel location for Chadley. I almost never found myself looking out into the distance and seeing something that I thought was cool, then going out to see what it was. If there was something like that, I would go to it and then be disappointed that there was nothing there for me to find, only to later find out that it was an area for a quest where a cutscene would play or a battle would take place. Also, as interesting as I think Chadley is, I really do not appreciate him stopping me from playing the game just so he can tell me I did something. It's totally redundant, as it's completely obvious that I just got the divine intel I was looking for, and Chadley stopping me from moving on to the next thing is just annoying. I don't want to be too much of a downer though, because I really did enjoy my time with this game. Last thing I'll say is that the party feels really tight-knit, like these guys are all friends on an adventure together.
So it's come to this.
Sucks to be you.
That's so, because I came prepared to win. Think you can take me?
I guess we'll find out.
Another loner. As if one wasn't enough of a pain in my ass.
Yeah, one's more than enough. You mean me?
Still alive! No homecoming for us today.
As if we were ever gonna lose, we're unstoppable!
In the original Final Fantasy VII, Yuffie and Vincent felt more like work friends in relation to the rest of the party. Like they all have the same goal, but they had to adjust some things for them, since they were optional party members that could be missed, and some scenes would be written in a way that would make sense if the player had them in the party or not. I really like seeing how these guys spend time together, and I especially like seeing Cloud be progressively more open with them. I don't usually make videos on games I've only played once, let alone games that just came out, but I'm not going to be going over the whole game or anything like that, just a few scenes and what I think about them. 3 to be precise. These 3 scenes best represent a problem I saw with how some scenes are structured in this game. I'll be going over the scenes and talking about what works and what doesn't work, and why. Also, to make sure this video doesn't go on for too long, I'm going to assume you know the context behind the scenes for the most part. I don't want too much of this video to be me recounting everything that's led up to these moments, because no one wants to hear that shit. Oh, also, if you're looking forward to seeing some guy completely beat down Rebirth by comparing it to the original Final Fantasy VII, then you're gonna have to get your jollies off on another video. I'm not going to be comparing these scenes to their PS1 counterparts, but rather looking at them purely from how they are presented in this game only. That being said, I do want to talk about the future of this series and where I think it's going. That will involve me talking about some stuff about the original, but that won't be until the end. The first scene I want to talk about is at the end of Chapter 8 with Dyne and Barret. Dyne was Barret's best friend before Shinra torched their town. Ever since then, Barret thought Dyne was dead and has been raising his daughter Marlene for him ever since. While at the Gold Saucer, Barret finds out that Dyne is still alive and has just killed a bunch of people. He decides to confront him after finding out where he's being held. Barret is also being mistaken for Dyne, as witness descriptions of the suspect seem to line up with him. So now the party is on a bit of a time limit to clear his name before Shinra catches up with them. While freeing Dyne, it's clear that he's lost his mind, talking to his dead wife and thought to be dead daughter. He's completely out of it, and when he sees Cloud, dressed as one of Shinra's soldiers, he goes berserk and tries to kill Barret, who he thinks is working with Shinra, and blames him for everything that's happened. The way Dyne moves here is really well done. Like, I love the way he leans back here as he fires at the rest of the party, and how he rolls his eyes when Barret stops him. Yeah, if I wasn't convinced before, I am now. This guy's fucking crazy. The ensuing fight is a really great moment for Barret. Before the fight, Barret tells everyone that he still trusts Dyne.
So that's why Dyne shot all those people? To get back at Shinra?
I don't know. I saw him at the saucer. Saw the bodies and the bullet holes. But that's not who Dyne is. Whatever his faults, he's not a monster. If I can find him, talk to him, I know we can figure this out.
Even during the fight, Barrett keeps telling himself that he can still save him. Even after Dyne turns into a boss from Nier, Barrett still has faith.
Come on! You can do this! You can still save him!
I'm gonna kill you!
What have you done to yourself, man?
After the fight, Barrett tells Dyne that Marlene is still alive, and we see a bit of the old Dyne that we saw in flashbacks come out for a little bit. It doesn't last long as Dyne quickly falls back into insanity and fires at the oncoming Shinra troopers, taking a hail of bullets before finishing them off. Collapsing on top of Barrett, Dyne tells him probably one of the most fucked up things you can say to your friend before you die.
You carry that guilt, that weight.
Dyne.
Finally, Dyne sees his wife before he finally succumbs to his wounds. On top of Barrett, including the events of a remake, Barrett loses so much. He loses his wife, his comrades, at one point he thinks Marlene is dead, and now his best friend, who he had just reunited with, is dead on top of him after saying that he wants him to live with the guilt of everything that has happened. The rest of the party hears Barrett cry out, but before they can reach him, they see Shinra helicopters moving their way with a huge mech. Okay, so here's the thing. While I do see the point of view saying that there should have been more time between Dyne dying and this boss fight to let the scene breathe, I don't necessarily see this as a flaw. I think the rest of the party fending off Shinra for Barrett is a great idea, and having some room to breathe after the boss can still work. My problem, however, is with the boss itself. We just saw a character we've been with since literally the beginning of this adventure go through the super traumatic experience that is losing a best friend. Again. And now we're fighting Palmer, who's riding around a giant robot frog and showing us his ass. So while I don't think the inclusion of a boss fight here ruins the moment per se, the boss we're specifically fighting could have been handled a bit better. Like, this thing's dancing and smacking Palmer on the head, and then at the end he ends up shooting down his own allies. After Palmer is defeated, the party reunites with Barrett. Everyone looks really concerned with Barrett. Cloud and Yuffie are worried about Shinra being on their tails. It seems like this would be a good place to have a moment to breathe and to have Barrett say a few words. But then the game throws this at us.
Fear not, friends! Your chariot awaits!
Can you give us a fucking second, please? This is the last person I would want to see after watching my friend die. I know Dio put this wrist thing on us to make sure we don't run away while we cleared Barrett's name, so it makes sense for him to show up and uncuff us, but this timing could literally not be worse. Dio's character and design is meant to be a visual gag as he's the head of the Coliseum at the Gold Saucer. He's meant to look like a stereotypical macho man. This is all well and good, but now we've got this guy coming up to a mourning Barrett in his underwear, doing all these ridiculous poses, and he even has the balls to tell Barrett that he'll make sure he gets a proper burial. Barrett on his knees while Dio is flexing and being all over the top makes the scene so weird and completely took me out of the moment.
Is this not a bit much, sir?
I really like Barrett as a character, you know? I want to see the shit he goes through and be able to feel for the guy just as much as I want to with the other characters. This would have been the time to let the scene breathe a bit, and it seems like they tried to fit a little bit of that in there, with Cloud telling Barrett that they're there for him, but it feels a little bit too late, and Cloud is speaking for the whole party here. Not that the other characters wouldn't want to comfort him, but they were just here a second ago, they could have had a line or two to express the sentiment themselves. Again, the characters are under the gun of a time limit here since Shinra is out to get them, but the thing with a time limit is that it can be any length within reason, so sparing an extra minute or so to let things cool down is totally within the realm of possibility. This could have been a good moment for Yuffie as well. In Intergrade, she watches Sonon, her own close friend, get killed, so while she doesn't have to really say anything, maybe we could have had a headshot of her looking sympathetic towards Barrett. You could probably just have her look at something in her hand that has something to do with Sonon. So I've been talking about letting the scene breathe, but in truth it feels less like it's not breathing and more like it's drowning. The scene sets up a tone and then shifts into something more frantic, then back again to something calmer, and then back again to something crazy, and then again to something quieter, and then back to crazy again. Like trying to keep your head above the water. I think a better way to structure this whole moment would be to have Barrett's fight with Dyne, Dyne's death, a more appropriate boss fight with the rest of the party, maybe with the Turks, and then having Palmer fuck everything up from the chopper, which would lead into the party being there for Barrett. Barret. Then, as they leave, Dio can pull up in the area where we fought the boss and give us the buggy. Barret can even ask Dio to make sure Dyne gets a proper burial as a way of apologizing for wrongly accusing him of the murders. I feel like the flow here works better, but there's also the problem of the party just leaving Dyne's body there, something I'm not sure Barret would do. The end of the chapter comes about after the buggy escape segment and the party moves on to the next part of their journey, which is the rest of the Corel region and the Gongaga region. At the end of the Gongaga region, we hitch a ride and fly to Cosmo Canyon, where the next scene I want to talk about takes place. Oh man, I bet it's gonna be Sid. It's gonna be Sid, isn't it? Is it? Yeah. There! So this segment won't be as long as the last scene, and it mostly reiterates what I talked about before, but I still want to bring it up because it has to do with a larger concern I have about this game's cutscenes. After arriving in Cosmo Canyon, the party meets with Bugenhagen, Red 13's grandfather. We learn here that Red bears hatred towards his father Seto, who he believes to have abandoned him and his mother during an attack on the canyon by the Gi tribe. Bugenhagen has Red go through a trial through a cave where the Gi were sealed away. At the end of the cave, Red finds out that his father didn't abandon the canyon, but rather went to confront the Gi after hearing about the attack they were planning. He fought the Gi for as long as he could, but was eventually turned to stone by the Gi's arrows. This changes Red's view on his father completely. He now respects his father and wants to live up to his bravery as his son.
I am Nanaki, Watcher of Cosmo Canyon, and son of Seto, Protector of our Vale.
Hearken unto me.
This shot of Red and his father is so well done. The moon and stars look amazing. I love how the blocking is done, so the sky and cliffs are pointing in the direction of Seto. Good shit. The thing with this scene, however, is how it ends. After Red howls at the moon, the scene immediately shifts to Gi Natak, and the party is asked to follow him. All of this isn't bad. The scene with Red ends well in my opinion. I'm going to show you the end of the scene again, but I've changed it in a way that I personally believe would fit it better.
I am Nanaki, Watcher of Cosmo Canyon, and son of Seto, Protector of our Vale.
While it doesn't look like much, I really do think this fade to black aids in putting a period at the end of this scene's sentence. Afterwards, Gi Natak can find the party as they're leaving or something, and he can take them on the spooky boat ride down the river Styx to talk about the black materia that way. The way the scene is now feels more like, okay, that's done, on to the next thing. Fade to blacks do a really good job of showing the audience that something is done. In film, it's been used to show the end of a character's story, or represent the passage of time. In the time that the screen is dark, the audience can be given a feeling of closure before moving on. That represents Red's story very well, actually. He had all this angst about his father before realizing that Seto was actually a hero who went so far as to sacrifice himself for not just his wife and child, but for the entirety of Cosmo Canyon. Red's original intention of parting ways with the group to protect the canyon as a watcher has changed now that he knows that he can't live in one place and expect to know the rest of the world. He was wrong about someone he was close with in a place he was born and called home. If he was wrong about something so close to him, how can he expect himself to understand everything in the outside world without seeing it for himself? This game, along with Remake, are very cinematic games. There are even well-choreographed cutscenes interwoven into boss battles. I think the issue here is that they want to do this thing where the transition between the cutscenes and gameplay are seamless. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like this shit isn't cool though. When the camera moves behind Cloud after a cutscene when you enter a boss battle, it really puts you in the moment. The thing is, for some cutscenes, it feels like editing techniques that could be used to convey strong emotions and drive home a point even further are being sacrificed for this transition to be able to work. In battles, you can't skip these cutscenes, making it very annoying if you're having trouble on a boss and have to repeat the fight. Believe me, I played through every chapter on hard mode, and having to sit through those scenes over and over again gets old extremely fast. Skipping those in-battle scenes would instantly remedy this. This last part is literally the last thing that happens in the game. My issues with this part regard both the scene and the final battles, pretty much a mix of the things I talked about up to this point. In the final chapter of the game, the party journeys to the forgotten capital of the Ancients to find Aerith, who went there by herself to pray for a way to stop Sephiroth. As they get closer, White Whispers try to stop them from helping Aerith. I'm gonna say it right now, the Whispers are easily my least favorite part about these games. I'll go over it in more detail later, but right now I just want to talk about their design. They're not exactly exciting to look at and are overall very plain. They move around like sperm cells, and the introduction of the white ones makes it even worse. They always appear in mass amounts, swirling around like a tornado. This scenery drives me nuts because it's very distracting. Eventually, only Cloud is able to enter the capital. The inside of the capital looks really nice. I like the underwater feel with all the coral everywhere. I like to think the whole underwater aesthetic is in reference to water being a vital part of all life, representing the ancients being worshippers of the planet and the life stream being an ever-flowing river that cycles the lives that are born from it and return to it. I'm not 100% sure what the park bench and vending machine are meant to represent, but I think we could just chalk it up to video game logic and the devs being nice enough to let us prepare for the final battle. Cloud finally finds Aerith and approaches her. I bet this whole thing would look even better if I wasn't being blasted by the sperm ghosts. They want to do this whole thing with the White Whispers trying to stop Cloud from getting to Aerith, but it's just not doing it for me. Finally, Cloud reaches Aerith just as Sephiroth drops from the ceiling. Aerith is both killed by Sephiroth and saved by Cloud. The rest of the party rushes in and we start a classic Square Enix patented 10-phase final boss. These battles are just too much for their own good. They even brought back Bahamut. Granted, it's not exactly the same Bahamut, but you can cut it out of the battle and it wouldn't change much. The Jenova fight is pretty cool though. Jenova has really good designs all around. I really like how each form you fight is an extraterrestrial mess, but still has recognizable human aspects, like skulls and arms, to indicate her shapeshifting properties. Like each form is trying to change, but got stuck somewhere in the process. I'm counting Jenova as one of the phases of the final boss, since there's no break between these fights. You can hold square to open the menu at some points during cutscenes, but you can't save. So if you wanted to take a break and stop at any point during the fights with Sephiroth, you would have to fight Jenova again. There are 10 phases to this final boss. Yeah, I wasn't exaggerating before. Some people might say this is normal for an RPG, especially a Square Enix title, but I don't think that means this is necessary, even for other games with this many final boss phases. Yeah, and at 10 phases, I'm drawing the line here. You see, most of the phases aren't hard, but you mostly don't get healed between them. So the real challenge of this battle comes from it being a marathon. How messed up you got during the last phase will determine your time going into the next one. Sephiroth Reborn also has the same fight twice with Cloud and Zack after they get separated.
What in the hell is going on?
Okay, Mr. Pierce. It's 2 in the morning. We have literally not gotten one good take for this line from you. Everyone's ready to go home. We just need you to do this line, man. Let's just make this the last one, and we'll call it a day. You know, the line is, what in the hell is going on? Feel it out for a second, and whenever you're ready.
What in the hell is going on?
You fight Sephiroth Reborn again with the rest of the party. The difference with this fight being that you have to clip his wings before attacking his core. He even uses the same moves save for 1 or 2 across these phases. After that is the final fight with Cloud and Aerith against Sephiroth. Yeah, I'm overdosing on Sephiroth over here. I feel as though Sephiroth has been kind of lost on me as a threat. We've beat this guy before in Remake with all of his Whisper shenanigans, and we're kicking his ass now with his new Reborn form and his Bahamut Whisper. I know this guy is trying to end the world, but when we're beating his ass almost every time he shows up to the point where he runs away, I just have to wonder how dangerous this guy actually is. If I'm being honest, I think I'm being a little overcritical in this regard. The things we've seen him do and what he plans plans to do is pretty intense. I just think the man himself could have been handled the same way. Back to the actual scene, looking at this from a narrative perspective feels off to me. Aerith being Schrodinger's cat is a bit frustrating in my opinion. Like, it's clear that she's either dead or gone away one way or another. The party is clearly distraught about something happening to her, but Cloud is either crazy or in some sort of state where he can see both worlds with different fates, one where Aerith is dead and one where Aerith survived. I've heard people talk about how this is Cloud in denial about what happened, but until we see something in the third game that confirms this, I'm ruling it out. I spent 2 whole games watching these characters get to know each other. I've seen them bond as horrible tragedies took place, watch them hang out and have fun, talk about their lives and problems and help lift each other up. I want to know what it's like for these characters to see their friend's life snuffed out. Tifa lost a best friend, Red lost the first person he showed his true colors to, Barrett lost someone who saved his daughter's life, Cloud lost someone he wanted to protect. I know after these battles we can see the party all looking depressed, and I know that we have a third game on the way that will probably clear some of these things up, but as it stands right now, I feel like there was a missed opportunity here. I know it's all subjective, and for some people, the sorrowful looks of these characters is enough, but I think it could have been so much more than that. If I had to change it, I would have had a segment between Genova Lifeklinger and the final battles with Sephiroth. The scene would be the party running over to Aerith's body and saying some lines, mourning the loss of their friend. Sephiroth, or a portal leading to Sephiroth, could be looming in the distance. The party is devastated, but they're forced to continue, since Sephiroth can't be left alone. They tell Aerith that they'll be right back and make their way towards the final battle. They could even briefly flash between this and the other world where Aerith is still alive, but I might not even do that, since it's hinted at already when Sephiroth drops from the ceiling, and we see both of Aerith's fates that way. This would show the characters' immediate emotions and reactions while also saving room to explore how this event impacted them, and how they'll grow from it in the next game, all while keeping the vagueness of the whole Schrodinger's Aerith. This would also be a good opportunity to prepare for Sephiroth, maybe having a portal to the final boss and letting the player go back to the bench and vending machine to re-prepare for what's coming. They'd also be able to save their game so they wouldn't have to refight Genova if they had to put the game down to do something else. These final battles take away from what happens to Aerith in my opinion. They could have had a final boss with 2 or 3 phases and had time to have the characters ruminate on what happened, but there's this huge 30-minute Sephiroth marathon. I know it's the end of the game, but that really doesn't matter honestly. How long would it realistically take to have a little more time for these characters to react to what happened? 2, 3 minutes? Not even? Personally, I believe showing these character growing moments could lead to potentially more interesting character development for the finale of this series. Before I move on to the outro, I want to take the time to talk about the future of this series. These predictions and speculations are based off of the events of the original Final Fantasy VII. Firstly, I really like Cid in Rebirth. I like how he's introduced as a method of travel, but eventually becomes a part of the adventure. I also like his personality here. He's always smiling and smacking Cloud on the back. It's like he's the cool uncle of the group. In the next game, I think it would be a great moment if when you got to Rocket Town, Cid suddenly turned sour, taking his anger out on Shira, and causing a fracture in his relationship with the rest of the party, as they realize they don't 100% know who this guy actually is. Cid could have really great development here, as he learns about why Shira stopped the launch of his rocket, and decides to keep traveling with the rest of the party. Vincent's side quest no longer being optional, or at least not locked behind getting him as a party member, is another story I'm looking forward to in the next game. Having the party grow closer to him, and helping him with what happened to Lucrezia, would be awesome to see. Same goes with Yuffie's quest in Wutai. Maybe we'll learn more about Sonon too. I can't wait to see how combat evolves in the next game as well. Maybe we'll see 3-way synergy attacks or limit break fusions. I'm seriously looking forward to fighting the weapons. I also hope they keep them optional. I always loved taking detours to fight those guys, and the rewards made it all worth it. I also hope summons are done a bit better. Not in battle, I mean. I just don't like fighting them in Chadley's simulation world. I think it'd be cooler to fight them in an environment that more appropriately matches them. Knights of the Round should be sick as hell too. I'm just gushing over here. I've probably been doing it for too long too. I just wanted to take a breather by being more positive after that whole overall negative section before moving on to the end of the video. Everyone always points to the director, Tetsuya Nomura, when they want to put a name to the problems they have with this series. In truth, there's a lot of people who are making decisions. Nomura isn't even the only director. Naoki Hamaguchi and Motomu Toriyama are also directors, and Yoshinori Kitase is the producer. Kazushige Nojima, the writer behind Crisis Core and Advent Children, is also the writer of this game. I think people put blame on Nomura because of how the stories in his other games play out, such as the Kingdom Hearts games. Those games are widely regarded to be very convoluted and confusing, among other things. So seeing him in the lineup as one of the big guys who made this game helps people put a face to their issues, I guess. To some fans, Nomura has become their scapegoat, even though there's an entire team behind the story of this game. But honestly, why would you blame any of them for you not liking the game? It's fair for people to expect really big things from such big names in the industry, but there's a lot of people who think that Final Fantasy, not even Final Fantasy VII, is supposed to be a certain way. I saw all this happening when 16 was coming out, when it was revealed that it was going to be an action RPG. There were a lot of people that were angry about this because they expect the Final Fantasy games to be more traditional RPGs. Who are we to say that Final Fantasy has to be one way or the other? Final Fantasy has been trying to do new things with its genre for quite a while now. If people don't like the way it's going, which is fair, they don't have to like it, there's tons of other games they could play. It seems like having the name Final Fantasy attached to a game is essential for some of these people, but in actuality there's tons of spiritual successors, like Bravely Default or Octopath Traveler, or even something that's not even made by Square, like Sea of Stars. Again, I can't help but reiterate that if you don't like it, then whatever, you don't have to like it, everyone's got their own tastes, but going on some internet forum like Reddit and saying, Mura ruined the Final Fantasy VII series, without offering any sort of constructive criticism is quite frankly really disrespectful to the whole team who worked on these games, just trying to make something people would enjoy. It's easy for me to sit here and act like I know better than literal veterans in the video game industry, so I just want to say I have a lot of respect for the people behind the scenes and wanted to say my piece on what they created. I really liked this game. I liked it enough to devote 200 hours to it and get the platinum trophy. At the end of the day, I'm just another guy with a microphone and some opinions who wants to talk about his favorite stories and games. I don't want to get too personal, but video games, movies, and TV shows are a huge part of why I wanted to do something creative with my life. Writing, drawing, filmmaking, and editing, I owe all of these passions to the works I've been consuming my entire life. Dissecting a work I experienced is a great way to understand what goes into these stories. I think people have gotten too used to being able to hide behind a screen. Sometimes I'll just be going through what people are saying about a game on Reddit or X or whatever the fuck and see that people are more interested in arguing with each other than they are discussing their opinions. This has pushed me away from engaging in online discussions, which is a shame because I value the conversations I have with people about the works we've seen. Maybe one day, people can talk about their opinions while being respectful about different points of views and acknowledging the value of seeing different perspectives. But that's probably never gonna happen. Not during the time I'm alive and kicking on this planet anyway. See ya.